it's our pleasure to initiate a new series of discussions with the experts from the platform of Islamabad Policy Institute. And today we are having the first discussion on a very critical issue for both for the foreign policy as well as the security of the country, and that is its ties with Afghanistan. We have been seeing for the past few days or past few weeks, there have been negotiations or talks between Pakistan and Afghanistan, not at a bilateral level, but being mediated by Turkey and Qatar. And these talks had to be held because of an unprecedented escalation between Pakistan and Afghanistan due to a long-standing issue of the cross-border terrorism. Today, we'll be discussing this issue with Muhammad Faisal, who is a fellow of Islamabad Policy Institute as well as PhD candidate at a university in Australia. Faisal, you must have heard that Pakistan and Afghanistan have agreed to hold the next session at the principals level without uh, describing who would be the principals in those meeting in that meeting. Sorry, but as far as the content is concerned, if you look at the Doha meeting and the outcome of that meeting, which was released by the Qatari Foreign Ministry, and then the outcome of the Istanbul process, you see little difference. We got a ceasefire in Doha, and they reaffirmed that ceasefire in Istanbul. There, they agreed on a mechanism to sustain peace, and here they just recognize the importance of having a mechanism for peace. The new addition in Istanbul process was uh, the something what they described as penalties for the violator. But the main focus of Pakistani side was to get a verifiable mechanism which can transparently check whether Taliban are acting against TTP hideouts. So, do you see any real progress having been made in Istanbul?
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. On the question of any real progress in Istanbul, I'm skeptic, given that even during the 4 or 5 day talks, both sides were not talking directly, as has come out, but they were talking through media to each other and through the mediators to each other. So there was a two-stage talks in a sense that while the talks were going on, there was clearly an effort by both sides to shape the parameters and influence the talk through informing their domestic audiences respectively. So in that sense, they went into the talk with a very low bar there to have that any fruitful outcome. And to a broader degree, even the real tangible outcome that we see over the past 10 days now is the continuation of the ceasefire or a commitment to having the ceasefire in place. That's what they came out from Doha. That's what they went into Istanbul for that, and they have gone back to the principles. The principles will be the same, most likely. If I were to make informed guess, there would be those who are in Doha at the level of defense minister, joined by the intelligence chiefs. Those will be the principles. Beyond that, I don't see anything more tangible happening in these talks because, given that, as you were saying, the escalation was such that it's being termed by the Pakistanis as a standoff. And for Afghan side, it's being termed as the political survival of the government. And they are trying to rally around the flag with the view to rebuild their domestic nationalist credentials. That has allowed the Taliban's government slash regime now, if Pakistan were to put it that way, uh, to really get the support from the Afghan street for the Taliban's own control government in Afghanistan. So in that sense, both sides are locked into their positions, and that limits any space for tangible progress.
Uh, Faisal, as they go into November 6 meeting, the focus will inevitably be on setting up of what Pakistan is calling a verifiable mechanism with regards to the action against TTP. So, what realistically speaking, what are the options for creating a verification mechanism?
See, the verification mechanism, if they were to design one, would be, for example, they can set it up first at one sector of the border. Let's say on the Torkham side, let's say they take one border crossing or 100 kilometer zone there, and they keep monitoring any movements that take place. And if they see what is termed as a tashkil, or a brigade or a battalion of the TTP fighters, it's getting together across on the other side and trying to cross the border. And then the mediators or those who are monitoring that, they will see that video evidence. They will try to speak to Kabul to see, hello, Kabul, there is a group that's forming in that's trying to cross. Please stop on your side. And if don't stop, if Kabul doesn't intervene there and stop them, then Pakistan will on its side take the action. And the mediators or those who are monitoring, they will see when Pakistan took the action. And they will have the timestamps of when the Taliban, that TTP group was formed, when it started moving across the border. So that's what the monitoring and the verification mechanism is, to see when and where each side took the action, and to corroborate it with the actionable intelligence. Now,
So, yes, yes.
in practice, it's easier said than done. In practice, it's very difficult to
So,
verify each and every step,
mm,
and that's across the entire length of the border. That's the dilemma there.
but Faisal, I spoke to some security people who have been participating in the dialogue, or who have been observing and keenly following the dialogue. They say that they want Afghan Taliban to act against the hideouts of TTP in Afghanistan and arrest their leaders and prosecute them. So, would that also be part of that verification mechanism, or do you foresee that becoming part of the verification mechanism, or will leave that to sincerity of Afghan Taliban, whether it's there or not?
Well, see, Pakistan will not leave it to the sincerity of the Afghan government or the Afghan Taliban. They would want, and also they will map out, they will give them the locations that the Pakistanis think are the coordinates of those camps, of their infrastructure. They will say, give them those. They will say that they are present there. Either relocate them or eliminate them and give us the progress report there. Now, for Afghanistan government to actually agree to all of that is a very tall ask. Think of this as 15 years ago, the conversation was between the US and Pakistan on action against the Haqqani network. The similar language was used by the US side, and what the arguments are being put forward by the Afghan side are the same arguments that the Pakistani side was using at that time. That if they start taking action against Taliban, on the TTP on their side, they will turn against them or they will go and join ISIS, and that will destabilize the Afghan government. Pakistan used to say the same about Haqqani network, that if Pakistan starts taking action against the Haqqani network, the fighters will turn against the Pakistani state.
So, if we were now to look at the broader issue of the ceasefire, how prudent is it for Pakistan to link ceasefire with the broader counterterrorism concerns?
Uh, on a practical side, that's a pragmatic strategy in the sense that that's how you try to move the needle a bit. That Pakistan is saying ceasefire is not that satisfying for us. Ceasefire is just temporary. It's a temporary peace for 6 weeks, 6 months, and then you are dependent on the goodwill of the other side to keep upholding that. But for the future, Pakistan or any state that's in the Pakistan's position, they would like to see the situation changed on the ground. And that's why there is a pressure being exerted right now to have that needle being moved in Afghanistan, even if it is by 5%. The progress will be very slow. And one advantage that Pakistan could have, this is a learning moment for Pakistan's policymakers and the security apparatus as well. While they engage with the Turks actually did this for 40 years, nearly 4 decades. So it's a problem that will not be solved in 4 months or 4 years. It's a long running problem. And for that, Pakistan would have to find a management framework where the conflict is managed, and that's how ceasefire plus few other actions every time. And right now, winter is approaching. In Afghanistan, during the US war, we saw that during winters, there would be automatic ceasefire. And then after winters, when the spring will come, it will start after Ramadan. There will be again a ceasefire there. So for next 5 to 6 months, if I were to put it that way, till the end of March, there will be a nature-driven, climate-induced ceasefire followed by Ramadan ceasefire. After that, in summer, the fighting will resume. And that's when we will find out actually, has any progress been made by Afghan Taliban on the ground? Naturally, when it starts snowfall on those high mountains in the Hindu Kush, many of those fighters will leave their current places and camps. They will relocate to other places. Come summer, they will come back. Will they come back in the same numbers or lower numbers? That's where we'll find out.
So, Faisal, moving to the last question about this discussion, as you said, this is a long problem. This isn't going to be solved in one meeting or two meetings. But the current Turkish and Qatari mediation or Qatari involvement in the tensions between Pakistan and Afghanistan are incident specific. We had an escalation, they stepped in to diffuse the tensions. Do you think that Pakistan should work for formalizing this as a regional security framework where the Turks and the Qataris remain continuously involved in matters between Pakistan and Afghanistan, and going looking at it from a broader perspective, probably in future between Iran and Pakistan as well?
Uh, well, it's a learning moment for both countries and the Turks as well, in the sense that when the countries go in and try to mediate the conflicts, while the parties are talking or not talking, they're fighting and talking. The mediators also make their own assessments about the other both parties who are arguing on the table, and given the experience of the other countries in this region, for example, China and Saudi Arabia, in different points in time and the results of those experiences, I am not very much hopeful that the Turks will continue to get into this business, like, say, 1 year down the road. The Turks will say, enough from our side. Qataris might be more involved because it's one of crucial part of their foreign policy, as we saw in the Gaza one, as well as we see in the Europe ones and the Latin America ones. For Qataris, it's a different one. But at what level they sustain it, that's also another question. And then how much confidence will both Pakistan and Taliban would have in the Qatar's ability to play that mediating role? We'll find out later. But for the Turks, I'm skeptic about if they will stay involved, let's say a year from now. Data point there is Saudi Arabia was very involved in 91, 92, 93 after the Makkah Accords, when all the seven parties of the Mujahideen, they signed that in Makkah. They came back a week later in Kabul and started fighting again. And Saudis gave up. And the same has been the case with the Chinese as well in recent years. They have tried to mediate between Pakistan and Afghanistan, both the Ghani government and the Pakistan and Taliban, and the results have left them pretty disheartened.
Faisal, we conclude today's discussion with the hope that something positive comes out from the November 6 meeting in Istanbul, although the hopes are not very high because the issues that are being discussed are very complex, and there's a huge trust deficit between the two sides right now. And especially as I have already said it at another forum, that the bond between Taliban and TTP is so strong that it is very difficult that it would dissipate very soon. It's both ideological driven as well as a sort of necessity for Taliban in terms of their internal security operations. But now with the local Afghans joining TTP, that those lines between uh, TTP as a foreign group and Afghan Taliban are also blurring. So it would become very difficult for Afghan Taliban to separate themselves unless the international community steps in to gradually wean away the Taliban through incentives and linking those incentives to compliance. Uh, so let's hope something positive comes out and our region has peace. Thank you, Faisal, for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.